and gentlemen, more people are going to show up because it's a lot warmer out there than in here. So anyway, this lady right up here, Valerie Corral, she's our Lifetime Achievement Award winner this year for all her work with WHAM, which is the Women's Medical Marijuana Collective of Santa Cruz. And if you don't know her story, it truly is remarkable. And she's going to tell you about what her work involves and the people she works with. And it's one thing she's always told me: if marijuana has any value at all, it's its ability to heal, and that's the most important thing that WHAM keeps in mind. It's a healing medicine. So everybody is here for Valerie Corral.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming in and sitting with us and having a chat. Honey, come on up. So this is a very esteemed panel. The chair of our board isn't here yet, but he's always late. So I think it's true. And he's just keeping in good form. He's an amazing guy. And most of every WHAM member is. Our collective began in 1993 after a run-in with the local sheriff. And actually we had 5 prior meetings where sometimes they took our medicine and sometimes they didn't. But in 93, it was the late 80s and 90s were zero tolerance. And so they took the medicine, and I happened to be fortunate enough to be the first patient in the state of California to challenge the law on medical necessity. And the reason is because it was my medicine, and I figured I could probably get some in jail anyway. And, right? So, but probably not that good. And in fact, nobody in the county of Santa Cruz could they find a jury that would convict me for that. Now, I wasn't the first patient in the state of California or the nation. It was already a groundswell and a movement, and quite a remarkable movement. Ralph, you want to join us?
Sure.
That'd be nice. Come on in.
Looks like such a congenial group.
Yeah, we're great. We're lovely. And because it's a movement, let's see, yeah. And because it was already a movement 22 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, it was a safe bet to continue because I wasn't standing alone. And so, that's the thing about getting arrested. Governments make revolutionaries. They're really born a revolutionary, but your government can make you one. And if you happen to be fortunate enough to have the opportunity to challenge the law and happen to have a groundswell behind you, it's also a really remarkable and important thing to do. So I began working I think Ralph and Jackie came in the early years, and I don't want to take too much time away from the panelists because I want you to hear their stories and their involvement, but I want to talk a little bit, and you've been here, and I want to talk a little bit about the things that we face, the problems that as patients we will face, and in the corporate struggle. In 22 years since WHAM has been a public collective, we've been doing this work publicly. We did it privately before that, but like I said, getting arrested. 40 WHAM members have become homeless after their diagnosis. It's not working, I'm talking about working with people who are homeless, we do that too. But people who had jobs, lost their jobs, lost their COBRA, lost their homes after that, their cars, and were retching from borrowed couches or tents in Big Basin Park. So the system that we have in place robs people not only of their wellness and assistance, but also of their homes, of their not their integrity, but of their ability to take care of themselves. And so our organization began a sister organization, a nonprofit, that's a hospice care group, the Design for Dying Project. It's Raja Guido. And we've worked with more than about 600 members, and I've been at the bedside of more than 150 of those people. And the thing about this movement is that it's huge. We have High Times that's been around. We have in our audience Michael and Michelle Aldrich, who been, thank you, who have been doing this work and leading us. It is, as I say, a groundswell. And this weekend is Gay Pride in San Francisco. And really, the medical marijuana, the medicalization of marijuana began with Dennis Perone and a handful of bags of gay men in San Francisco who stood up and said, we've already had enough. We've already been marginalized and beaten down and shot at, and we are going to take this out. We have nothing left to lose. Many lives, and many years later, we're still doing the same thing. And I think really one of the important pieces is that we separate and marginalize our movements. We separate our movements, and it's happening the same weekend as Gay Pride in San Francisco, but we're here, so really, we want to be thinking about how we can bring these movements together, because there's something huge that's in the offing, and it's very close, and Monsanto has their eyes on it. One of the people who had funded us in 1996 was George Soros. He also funded our third arrest by the DEA in 2002, when we sued the federal government with our city and county. We needed to have money. It was a $2.5 million lawsuit over many years. And while that was an extremely important thing, little did I know to look deeply enough to see that George Soros is one of the major stockholders in Monsanto. The enemy. Monsanto is the enemy. If you think it's not, check your carrots. Because Monsanto has on their minds, and is doing it right now, they are GMOing hemp. It's starting with hemp. But the way that legislation goes around cannabis, and this is the truth, the way that legislation goes around cannabis will go for all plants and for your water. You will be begging Monsanto for a carrot that doesn't belong to them. So we have to organize, we have to join our movements, not be marginalized. In the 60s, out of the civil rights movement, the feminist movement, the gay and lesbian movement, the anti-war movement, became separation and marginalization. We cannot let them do it. We have the internet, there's no reason for us to do that. Look, this room, instead of being full, it's not to listen to what I have to say, but instead of being politically astute, nothing wrong with getting stoned, I do it every day, but the point is this: instead of get high and write your congressman, get high, organize, get high, don't buy their GMO crap. Don't listen to what they're telling you at Whole Foods, that it's not GMO. It is GMO. Ask them, make them prove it. We are facing a really serious dilemma, because it isn't just taking over the food, it's taking over the planet and everything that we eat and drink. Okay, that's my wrap on that. One of the other things, one of the other things are the oils that we're providing for people. I do a lot of palliative care work and end-of-life work, but I do a lot less now, because we make incredible oils. Now, when we passed Proposition 215, and then it was followed by SB 420, we worked for 4 years at the state level on SB 420. And one of the most important things that's in SB 420 is any product made from cannabis, any product made from medical marijuana is medicine, including oil. So I suggest that as people are getting busted, that they stand up, just like we did with the using medical marijuana, growing medical marijuana. We need the oils because we don't need the pharmaceutical industry, Monsanto, DuPont, Johnson & Johnson, who are already well ensconced. In May of 2011, 55 unnamed pharmaceutical companies were given license to grow marijuana in the United States. Not you, them. So you can bet that Monsanto's there too. In any case, the oils that we're making are profound. For instance, yesterday I got a call from the father of one of our members who had prostate cancer, and I say had. 4 months ago he came into WHAM and he came into my office, and we talk and meet with our members and talk and try to find out what we can do to alleviate and create a kind of montage of treatment, because really the body heals itself. If you go online, you're going to find every kind of snake oil, pot oil, whatever it is. Somebody's going to sell you something to heal you. That's not how the body works. Trust me, there is no panacea. The body heals itself. It has remarkable capabilities. Endocannabinoid system, that which is in inside of us, and the symbiotic relationship between all of our parts of this universe has an incredible ability to heal. So the medicines that we provide stimulate healing. They aren't the panacea, they aren't the trick, though they do amazing things, THC, CBD, and other things we don't even know what they do. We don't know how to define them, we can't even see them, we don't know what it is in its symbiosis or entourage that is helping the body to heal, stimulating the endocannabinoid system to work symbiotically with the other systems, to lean and support the immune system, the musculoskeletal system, the digestive system. So by providing these oils, this young man who came in was able to take pretty high dose CBD. He didn't really want to do much THC, though I find that it's extremely effective to do high THC and low CBD. This is the confusion. In any case, yesterday his dad called and said after 4 months of using the oil and not opting for surgery at 32 years old, the outcome of surgery is it's often in impotence. So at 32, that wasn't a great, at any age, it might not be such a great choice. 4 months later, he's cancer-free. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's one of the many stories that we hear, but that's yesterday's story. That's Troy's story. And it's by using the oils, by making them accessible. Patients work in the garden, patients make the medicines, patients cap them, fill the syringes, help one another, stay by each other's bedsides, deliver, come and talk to y'all if you're interested in hearing what you can do. And this is a big revolution. It's in your neighborhood, it's in your house, it's in your bed, it's with your family. We're not separate from one another as long as we don't believe that we are. I'm going to let somebody else talk because this can go on, and I want to have time for questions as well. So in any case, do you want to start, Ralph? Ralph, I'm going to tell a little bit about Ralph. Ralph came in '96, I think, and 99, inverted 6. And he came to WHAM and he began his own sister organization, BAM, Bay Area Alliance for Medical Marijuana, and started growing medicine and giving it away. Actually had to get another job to continue to pay for his grow. And that's kind of the spirit of WHAM. I don't mean to say you have to go broke, but you do have to share. And this is kind of we're not the antithesis of, my friend calls me the anti-prophet. That's not really true. But the movement's been misconstrued. We taught young people it's our fault, but we taught young people to be greedy. We taught young people to go for it, to say me first. There's nothing wrong with me first, because if you help yourself, you can help others, but that's a piece that we're missing. We're not helping others. This has turned into the Monsanto movement. It looks a little bit like pharmaceutical industry to me. It looks a little bit like a lot of greed to me. It looks a little bit like somebody forgot to get high and really experience what it means to expand your consciousness. Because your healing won't happen without your consciousness. I'm going to pass this on to Ralph before I start on another tangent.
But anyway, I look out and see everyone here, and I think I'm going to be preaching to the choir, so I'm going to cut out most of the things I was going to say. I was going to say, give a couple little anecdotes, things that inspired me, that got me into the movement, and then I'm going to pass the microphone along. Back in like '98 or so, I was sort of retired. I was working on a project with this guy named Bill Ruverall, who was he wrote the patent for the Votomatic voting machine, and he was a guy that chants and butterfly ballots you all may remember from the Bush-Gore election. Anyway, this guy also had invented this gearing for a thing called a Segway human transporter, and you've probably seen them around scooters, and they have the wheels on the side instead of front and back. So we were working on that project, and Bill had a son, Jonathan. Jonathan had stomach cancer, and he was in terrible shape. He was dying, and he couldn't sustain his chemotherapy. and he got sicker and sicker. He couldn't hold down food, and the guy was on his last legs. And I said, Bill, I read that if you smoke pot, that you don't get sick from chemotherapy, that you can actually feel okay. So I said, well, I went to my friend who grew pot in his backyard. And up until that point, I was just kind of a casual pot smoker, and I didn't really do medical, sure, they just want to get high, and all of that. So I went to my friend, Dwayne, and said, Dwayne, let's buy some pot from you and give it to this guy. And I gave it to Jonathan. Jonathan smoked a joint. Jonathan was in the bathroom for 18 months with his chemotherapy. He smoked after his first joint. 2 days later, he was back at work as an architect. I thought, oh my God, this guy. Subsequently, he died, but what occurred to me was that if I had gotten him a few joints, 6 months earlier, that guy would be around, his wife Eve wouldn't be a widow, his 2 kids wouldn't be orphans. So, in the meantime, I started growing in my backyard so I could supply Jonathan with more pot, and I bought this book called Flower Forcing by Thomas Flowers. And in the back of it, I saw a picture of this lady right here, Valerie Corral, and I got to know her. She's cool. So I wrote a letter, and I went down. I said, I really got to get into this WHAM thing. This is so great. So Val gave me a list of people who wanted to get into WHAM. It was a long waiting list, like 4 or 5 pages, and I just started name, phone number, and address. I started at the top, and I went to visit every single person on that list. And the first 3 people that I met, the first person I met was this lady named Christina. Christina had scoliosis so bad. She had so many things wrong. She had to have her pelvis removed. So she had no pelvis, so her leg bones weren't attached to anything at all. But she had to have one leg amputated. She had only one leg that wasn't attached to anything. And she showed me how she could wind up her foot and let it go, and it would spin back. The second person I met was, on this list, was a guy named Satinder, a guy from Punjab who came over here to live the American dream, and he was doing great. He had a beer distribution outfit, and a wonderful, nice wife named Karen, a house in Santa Cruz, a swimming pool, and he came down with MS. And it got so bad, that's one of the, mostly women get MS, but this guy had it, as bad a cases I've ever seen. His wife had to hold him up at night so he could sleep. And even then, it took a joint or 2 before he could, the burning sensation. Oh God, I'll get to that next. The third person I visited was a guy named Levi. Now Levi was this 18-year-old, he was 18 then, that was a while back. He was surfing one day and landed on his head, and he was paralyzed from the neck down ever since. And so I was sitting on the edge of the bed, his mother was sitting next to me, and Levi was in this standing stand. It's they bolt you into this thing if you're a quadriplegic, so you can stand and at least have normal posture for a little portion of the day. So he was telling me his story, and I just started crying. I just started crying, and then he said, "Oh, don't feel bad. It could have been worse." And then I just little tears everywhere. His mom was consoling me, and at that instant, I knew that my mission in life was to get some joints in these people's mouths and alleviate their suffering. Since then, I started an organization. We had 34 members, and I grew pot for them in, it was a very nice landlady in Richmond Industrial Village. And she let me grow all the pot I wanted in there, and I supplied 34 people with basically an ounce of pot a month, and I would deliver it to them half an ounce every other weekend. So I had 34 people, plus in Santa Cruz for WHAM, had all these people on the list, so I started getting gardens together. I gathered, I bought some equipment, some donated equipment. I got 20 different people with gardens, most of them indoors, few of them outdoors. And am I going too long? Couple more minutes, okay. So anyways, I had 20 gardens going in Santa Cruz and 34 patients up in the North and East Bay. And all I can say is that I couldn't work hard enough. When you see somebody who's paralyzed, who's stuck in bed, can't do anything, even to read a book, he has to have somebody turn the page for it. Now, of course, there's Kindle, but back then they didn't have Kindle. What it does for people, it turns their lives from unbearable into actually pleasant. Imagine waking up not being able to move any limb. Imagine waking up and having burning sensation all over your body. Imagine somebody sticks a joint in your mouth and lights it, and the burning sensation goes away. And all of a sudden you can sit in your wheelchair and your mind is free. And you can look out the window and forget about your pain and forget about your body and just live for a few minutes. And all I can say is, it's great legislation, is great cards, ID cards, pot clubs, other types of dispensaries. But you know what? These people, you can turn somebody's lives around with just one joint. And you just roll the joint as fast as you can, get it in their mouth and put a match to it. And you save somebody hours and hours and hours of misery from their wretched life. And I think that's it. That's all I have to say.
Ralph is on our board of directors, and he's been on since then.
Yeah.
So, and he's now the chair of our board of directors. And, oh my God, our board meetings. But anyway.
We have a fun board meeting.
Yeah, they've gone through an evolution. And Jackie's also on our board of directors. Ralph's chair, and Jackie's our secretary. And Jackie came to WHAM because somebody had asked her to be their caregiver. And the way that I think about a caregiver, because WHAM helps whether you have money or not, and that can be stressful in payroll time, and or rent, or insurance, or you name it. And Jackie, I suggest that you, when you take a caregiver, that you trust both with your life and your pot, and those are two really important things because diversion can happen. But Jackie came, and she, when the patient for whom John died, folks were fighting over her to become their caregiver, and she's remained with WHAM for a decade. She even got married at the Tuesday night WHAM meeting, which we had since 1992. There are 150 people in our Tuesday night WHAM meeting, so then people picked up and the party ensued. And Jackie works with children and or young people, and I'll let Jackie tell some of her stories, and it's remarkable too.
Yeah, I did get married at a WHAM meeting, and I met and married another WHAM member. And then we grew together. That's kind of how we got together. But my other job was as a child nutrition specialist, and I worked junior high and high school, which in WHAM has played a lot to me. Because a lot of these people who are very ill have children this age. And when you're that age, you don't want your friends to know. You don't want anybody to know anything's wrong. And the coolest thing that ever happened to me was there was a girl named Shana, who now is Val's daughter. Her mother was very, very ill, and I was helping take care of her. And Shana started her first year at junior high school, and none of her friends knew what was going on in her house. And she came to the lunch window one day, and she saw me standing there, and I didn't say a word. I just smiled at her, and she said, "Oh, Jackie, I'm so happy to see you. I'm so happy to see you." And I didn't tell anybody where I knew her from. I gave her, I said, "Shane, it's great to see you." And as she walked away, I heard her friends ask her, "Hey, where do you know her?" And she said, "She's a friend of my mom's." And she said, "And mine." So that made me feel real good. And, you know, I have several kids that are going through school who can relate to me. They know that I know what's going on. And sometimes it's very difficult for them. A lot of the patients, that's what keeps me going, is watching people get better or being with somebody you know is going to die, but they want you there. They want you to hold their hand. They want you to give them shotguns. They want you to be present with them. And marijuana is medicine. I don't care what anybody says. They get the rappers to rap. Everybody can do what they want. Marijuana is medicine.
So, I want to introduce Danny Smith, whose name I spelled correctly. Damn it, I should never do that. And Danny is new to Wham, and he's a DJ, and probably had a very different thought about cannabis as medicine. And he can tell you the story, which I think is remarkable and not uncommon.
Thanks, Jackie. What's up, guys? I'm just a dad, a DJ too, but I'm just really a dad. I want to put a picture up. This is my daughter, Justine.
Oh.
Get that right? She's 11. We've been through hell and back. So, let me give you the quick little history. She was diagnosed with tuberous sclerosis from birth. It's a genetic disease. And if you've never heard of it, what it does is especially in her case, she has benign tumors in her heart and her brain. So we were kind of shocked, and when we saw the ultrasounds and everything during the pregnancy, we said, okay, we didn't really know, how it was going to pan out. At about 5 months old, she started having seizures, and anybody in here, put your hand up if you've seen seizures personally in your life, if you know that it's a son of a bitch. You feel helpless, there's nothing you can do, you just want to help that, that kid, but it's an amazing feeling of helplessness. So as a parent, you scramble to try to figure out what's going on, and so, basically for about 10 years, our neurologist told us our options, which were basically brain surgery, which would be a 40% success. And I'm going, that's not very good success rate. I don't think we'll do that. So medication. So over the last 10 years, she's been pretty highly medicated on, if anyone's familiar with epilepsy or seizure drugs, it's, you change one every 6 months. You know what I mean? So she's been on all of them. I'm standing here today in joy. I finally have hope for the first time in 10 years is how I'm feeling. And so it hasn't even been a year since we've started her on her new, CBD basically, the new medicine. So let me talk about that a little bit. In October, when I started hearing about it, I think a lot of people might have maybe for the first time started hearing about CBD. I heard about it in October, and my ears perked up, and I said, "Holy cow! Maybe there's another option out there." So as I spread out my network, I'm calling people trying to figure this thing out. I know a lot of people in the marijuana industry, and a lot of people are going, "Hey, I got CBD for you here, CBD." And I go, "Well, oh cool. Well, what's the profile?" And nobody could tell me the damn profile. So as I kept digging, I finally ran into Wham and Valerie, and we sat down, and Valerie just helped me break it down, because she's got her own situation that's very similar, and really, really helped me get the insight of, okay, well, this much THC, this much CBD, every child is different, so you really have to customize the medicine for that child. And it's not just try this pill, it's a trial and error, right? I really had to go renegade to figure out what the heck to do. And so, Valerie loaded me up with a bag of like all kinds of different forms and tinctures and pills, and try this and 2 to 1. And so I went home and I dosed myself to try to, figure it out, see how it would affect me first. That first night, I went home and I was stuck on the couch for like 10 hours. I was all messed up.
I didn't eat all at once.
I know, well, I said, I'm just going to try, I'm going to double dose everything, and I just ate it all. It wasn't the best idea. So,
I didn't know you were a DJ.
if you did, you probably would have given me more and told me to take it. So she said, there's this next crop that we're really excited about, and it's 25-1. So, really soon after that, about 2 or 3 weeks later, we got our hands on it, and I went in there, and we started the regime. And so, anyone affected with similar situation that's interested, I had to, first I had to go get an 11-year-old a prescription for marijuana, which is not easy. My doctor, who I've had for years, was like, let me call the elders, and it took a minute, but we got her a prescription, first thing we had to do. And then, really, at this point, my daughter was taking 12 synthetics a day. And so we decided that we were going to leave that alone and just implement the CBD, We gave her a little bit, 5 milligrams of it a day, and we said, let's take our time, let a couple, 2-3 weeks go by and see how things go. Well, after a couple, 2-3 weeks, it went from, I would say she was having about 15 or 20 seizures a week. She's having 2 or 3 a day, and it started going down a little bit. I'm like, geez, I seen the CNN thing, maybe there's some realness to this, and it started working, and it started working better and better and better, and so we got to the point where I wanted to start decreasing and weaning her off the synthetics. So at that point, I went and checked in with our neurologist, and we were scared, because, all the legal and illegal stuff we're dealing with here. So surprisingly, the neurologist said, yeah, well, a lot of the other TS patients in this clinic are already doing that, and they're seeing results. So she was with us, sort of off the record, and said, keep on doing it, but here's how you wean. And with weaning, as Valerie knows, you have to go very slow. If you go too fast, it's like coming off heroin, and you can really hurt the child. So we just said, take a pill down, and let, 2, 3, 4 weeks, I think it was 2 to 3 weeks we waited. And we did this was our little dance we did, and right around December, I want to say, is when Albert Coles gave me the THCA, which is this another part of the medication that has a lot of working abilities. It's doing a lot for my daughter, and we're still trying to sort of get our hands around it. But at this point in December, she's down about halfway down the seizures, and we're down, getting down on the pills, and we started giving her the THCA, and it really, all her school teachers, all the parents are saying that this is really working. Whatever you're doing, don't stop. So we're about 9 months into it right now, and she's down to 1 synthetic a day, and she hasn't had a seizure in 8 weeks. Thanks so much for Valerie and Wham, you guys, for
Just one comment on that. We're finding that what we initially were doing was CBD, and we didn't decarboxylate fully, and found that CBD is the A is the acid form. So THCA or CBDA is the acid form, and they're not fully decarboxylated form, which means fully cooked down. So when you light a joint, you're decarboxylating, or breaking it down into another form. And the interesting thing that we're finding, this is true with everyone, we cannot, the future, let me back up a little bit. The future of all medicine is not the way it's happening now. When the pharmaceutical industry can find out how to do the alchemy, like test, shake it up, read it, take 2 drops, add 2 drops, change it in that manner, do the alchemy for each individual person, we'll all have much better medicine. One size doesn't fit all. It really doesn't. It doesn't in clothes, and it doesn't in biochemistry. And we are so unique that we really have to sit with members. So when you read on the internet, the internet's a little bit like, when I was a kid, we'd do 2 tin cans, we'd put a string together, and we talk that honestly, the internet is a little bit like that, because what we think we're hearing and what we think we're saying are 2 different things. It's not really the way it is. You're not going to sell one package and promise the answer to somebody else. You might promise your good fortune, you may make money off of it, but that's not the promise. Every individual has not only the right to communicate, to understand, but every individual is his or her own best healer. And in this case, the parent is so connected to the child that you become a healer with your child and listen to that person. So that's the CBDAs. I suggest the acid forms, both THC and CBD and CBN as well. So the things that we don't even know how to ask, the questions we don't know are really the important ones. We don't even know the question to ask. So that's why we want to really move into listening to people and experimenting and really listening to yourself. You're your own best doctor. Jaime Silva is an educator and has come to WHAM, and I'm going to let you tell your story. And has been with us for 5, and is a really great volunteer. We count on him to come and organize. His fabulous sense of design. So I'm going to pass this to Jaime.
I was trying to think of what to talk about, and I guess I was thinking about how I've been chasing my medicines for so many years. About 1994, 6 months before my 21st birthday, I was a wrestler in high school, so I was 150 pounds, I was in great shape, happy, healthy, I had a great job, everything was going really well. Within a few months, I dropped down to 96 pounds, my hair was falling out, my gum, that was a mess. I remember the look of my mother's face when she saw me. She was just already burying me, so that was in 1994. And I asked my doctor for some Marinol because I was having trouble keeping food down. And I think I was suffering from malnutrition, dropping all that weight. And he used to come up, I lived in a small, high desert town. I grew up in New York, but I don't know how I ended up there. And he said, I can't prescribe it to you because I'm not here all the time to monitor you. And a few weeks after that, he told me, well, we were having a frank conversation, and he suggested that I had about 2 years to live. So I figured by 23, 24, I'll be dead. And I started, getting everything in order. It was weird. It was very strange. My friends were hanging out and having their drinks, and I couldn't. That whole period just disappeared. So I spent the next 10 years just waiting. I didn't die. I wasn't dying. It didn't look like I was going to die. So then I ended up moving somewhere in another desert community in the Central Valley, and I had to drive 2 hours to get medical marijuana because it passed. It was legal, and it was, wow. I got my card right away. And I saw the difference. I was on disability for all these years, and I was finally able to go to work. Little part-time jobs, step by step. I wasn't so dependent. My self-esteem went up. I was very happy, and then they raided all the dispensaries in Bakersfield, shut everything down. So I was trying to chase, hey, anybody? People just don't talk. It's scary. It's secretive. It was very weird for me, and I just gave up. Finally, 5 years ago, I came to Santa Cruz, and I wasn't doing so well. I was still on disability, and I really wasn't thinking too much about a future. I was feeling old. I was feeling kind of disappointed with my life. I had gotten my bachelor's, which was good, but what was I going to do? I don't know. I felt really bad, and I didn't know anybody. I didn't have any medicine, and I showed up at WHAM one day, I was crying, and I remember Val shut the door to her office, and I knew she was busy, and I remember how kind she was to me. God, I just can't tell you what that meant to me. And one thing that she said to me was that this is a collective. We all do our parts. And I'm a Taurus, so I guess I'm pretty literal. I believe you. And that's how I've approached my relationship with Wham. I do my part wherever I can, when I can. I've been pretty sick, and she's tracked me down and given me a big thing of chicken soup. When I don't show up for a while, they start tracking me down. She knows the names of everybody that goes to that office. I have a hard time remembering my name. And I've had pot. Just saying that word is still a little strange for me. You know, it's like coming out. I've had consistent medicine for the past 5 years, and my life has changed. I work full time. I'm off disability. I'm a productive member of society that the government says, you know, is not possible. I teach little kids, and I'm a great teacher. I'm great at what I do. And I guess today is a big deal for me because I've been hiding. I've been in a closet, my pot closet. And I've been embarrassed, I've been ashamed, I've been scared. And just doing this for me is a big deal. And I want to tell you, Val, that I'm there forever. Well, unless my doctor's right, I'll die at 25. So I just want to thank everybody, you know, here for being here, and please, you know, Wham is so important for so many of us. Thank you so much.
I met Millard through his sister, who's a friend and a musician. And Millard's a musician and is a remarkable person. And I'm going to let him tell you about himself. And he has a website, and I hope you'll give that website to send people to. What is it? You'll start with that and then end with it. Okay? This is Millard Corral.
Hi everyone, my name is Millard. I've been a Wham member for like 3 or 4 months. About 5 months. Yeah. So fairly recent. It was, well, there was like several things that kind of happened over the course of the last few years that brought me to Wham. It was a week before my 30th birthday. I was diagnosed with blood cancer, and pretty much I talked to 2 different doctors. One of them said that they could do treatment. The other one pretty much sent me to Albuquerque. Said what the type it was, I'd have 12 to 18 months. So they started doing treatments, and pretty much for the last year and a half I've been doing chemotherapy. But the particular treatment that I was doing, I was in the hospital for 1 week, every 21 days. And pretty much that stopped because with chemo treatments, there's only so much that your body can pretty much tolerate before the doctor will stop it, because giving you a drug will pretty much kill you. That's if your cancer isn't it. So I was pretty much at the tail end of that treatment, and I had, after that, there was no other thing to do. It was pretty much, we'll send you home, make you as comfortable as possible. That's it. So that's when I was talking to my sister, and she said, oh, she knows this person named Valerie, and she runs a collective. You can talk to her, and she showed me like a couple videos on YouTube, like the CNN video and stuff. And So I went in and I talked to Val, and she was like, the CBD oils that I've taken. I mean, it's taken a little while, but I'm at pretty much the point with that where I'm where I should be. And I actually went in and got scanned not too long ago. And the doctor said that the cancer is stable, which is completely under for I mean, it was like pretty much. Now she's pretty much saying, okay, Randall, I don't know what you're doing. Keep doing it, it's working. So, but it's just been, I mean, it's, for me, like, just the last couple months have been such a shift. I think it's like for the last, essentially 3 years of my life, I pretty much woke up every day thinking, will this be the day? And then now I have to pretty much, like, kind of figure out how to live my life again because I've been given that chance. So, yeah. And so that's kind of my story. So like one of the things I ended up doing was starting a website to help my mom out. Well, because originally I was living in Arizona and I moved back to California to help out my mom because she was in an accident and she wasn't able to run her care home. And she owns a care home in Santa Cruz, and we care for 34 mentally disabled adults. And I've been like our Christian group, my brothers and sisters have all been like helping run the business for her. And then so what I ended up doing was starting a fundraiser to do that, to be able to support my mom's business and to support myself. Because I am a musician, so I have a SoundCloud website that I have like a bunch of my music on. And then there's an Indiegogo website that runs with it, because all the music on SoundCloud is free to download. And then I'm using the Indiegogo page for people that, if you like the music and you want to download it, listen to it, you can. And then you can donate to these other page. So I have a Facebook site. It's called Caring Through Music. And then all the websites, links and all that are on that.
So visit the site. It's beautiful. The music is amazing, and of course, it's free. So, and you can help. I mean, the thing about getting ill is it can be isolating, and one of the reasons for the collective is how it brings people together, because you don't get much, you can't get as much done alone in your room, and you have to sound off people. We're tribal, we belong together and can support one another and help one another. And so small efforts have a huge impact. As a matter of fact, nothing in the last 40, 50 years, there's been no social change, no change in civil liberties that's come from the legislature down. It's all come from the people up. This law as well. All civil liberties in the last, I think, 60 years has come from the people. And so helping one another in small ways is a huge thing that each of us can do. It's huge. So I want to introduce you to Johnny Chesko. Johnny and I have been friends for almost 40 years. And Johnny has a very colorful past. I don't know if he'll tell you much about it, but statute of limitations probably. Johnny's I'm sorry. That's it. So, probably did. And Johnny came to WAM. We've been friends a long time and had a lot of interactions over the years and wonderful stories. And besides being a great storyteller, Johnny's also a great volunteer too. I mean, this panel is full of support team, and we see each other a lot and help a lot. And Johnny comes in with his friend Louisiana once a week and changes the face of the place too. And I'm going to let Johnny tell whatever part of the story he wants. So, this is Johnny. Johnny.
Thank you, Val. Thank you all for being here. And it's kind of really a joy to come and sit and talk to some people. You know, these stories we just heard from this panel, oh my God. I mean, you know, they've already stunned me. And, but all that happened to me too. I was diagnosed with cancer. I was 5.5 years ago, 6 years. And, you know, it's just like, okay, you know, here's how it goes. We got the radiation treatment set up by 23 Valerie Corral. And we got some chemo cocktails for that. And then you're going to get well. And maybe we'll put some pellets, you know, some pellets in your body. And just make sure you don't have small children sitting in your lap. Yeah, I thought you were going to heal me. What are my options here? Well, they all had to do with radiation. And I mean, I was done. I mean, I was bulletproof till I was 65. And then I'm going to die. So, I mean, I just started doing as I was told. You know, enjoy yourself as you do exactly as you're told. Well, I got the tattoos they give me from the laser treatment for radiation. And I was sitting there, and they were going to give me the first one. And an angel, I don't know if it was Valerie, or an angel came to me and said, "Get the hell out of here. Get out. You don't need to be radiated." I ran out. And I decided to take charge of my own health. That's what I decided. And believe me, it's not that easy. Because the doctors, they're mostly nice people and they want to take care of you. But they only have this much to offer you. And then that's it. And there's a whole lot out there, a lot more, that they can't do. And they don't want to know anything about that part. So I just used all my money that I had saved and retirement things, and I spent it to get well. And I started, first of all, knowing as much about cancer as my doctors did. And believe me, it wasn't that hard. It wasn't that hard to do. And then I realized that there were other alternatives to do. And I was told in the very beginning, oncologists and all that I was making a serious error in judgment. I had an aggressive cancer, that I was going to die. And if it wasn't for a lot of real strong people, I cleansed myself, and that's what I did. I just decided to cleanse myself and get rid of all my bad habits. And I'm going to live some more. So I realized that diagnosis became a gift. Crazy, huh? You know, and when I looked at it that way, I said, okay, now you can stay out here. Even if you're not a curse. It's not a curse. It's a gift. Because I did clean up. I mean, not all the way, but I mean, I want to keep my car clean, but it started working. When I ran out of money, I went to see my friend Valerie. She said, "Yeah, well, this is a sliding scale thing." You know? So I started doing it all about 7 months now. And I've dropped 5 points in PSA. Well, that's not important. What's important is that as I don't live in fear, I don't have fears. I'm not afraid anymore. Like I'm not scared with that diagnosis. Like this guy did, and this fellow. We got the shit scared out of them. And now they don't have that anymore, and I don't have that anymore. Because I'm in charge of my own health. Like this fellow with his daughter. Good grief. You know, I mean, and that's the first step, is taking charge of your own health. Man, I feel good about that. Because I know what's going on. I know how to pronounce the words. And I know what this is. And I know what's bad or good for me, you know. It's my decision again. And I made this area, this body, not a temple, exactly. So I got some cancer. Let it go on, let it go away. Wave it goodbye. Oh, I thank you for this heads up, because that's what I got. And now, I've been on this one, and it's changing me. I don't have as much inflammation. I don't have as much, my PSA, even the guy that invented the PSA for men says it's not valid. But when I went back to my oncologist, I go back every 4 years. And I say to him, anything new? He goes, no, I'm sorry, Johnny, we don't have anything new. Okay, I'll see you. So come back in 4 years. So the nurses there said, don't get a PSA test, and don't let them biopsy you where you're going to tear the skin in the biopsy, and it just exacerbates cancer. You know, so it's just all these things. These doctors mean well, this is all they need, like this much. And then the rest of it, they don't know anything about. So it's not, but to take charge of your own health, I mean, know what you're doing when you're talking to doctors. And you keep doctors so you can get test results and you have it paid for. But the rest of it's up to you. Just don't leave it up to them. Yeah? And so Valerie is my console. You know, I can bounce things off with her and things will change. She'll check in with me. I give her the test results and what I do every day with the oil. But I'm convinced that we're on the edge of the future here for treatment. And Valerie is going to be, she's been approached to teach doctors, MDs and PhDs, so that they can learn about the oil and what its real true value is, and start studies and start allowing people to have it, you know, without prejudice. So I'm just so grateful for it. Just to say these few words, I've been waiting for a long time to say it. I didn't think I would tear up either, you know? I didn't think I would do it, but I tell you, it's true. You know, it's a real joy to have like-minded. You know, I see all you folks as kind of like light workers, people who shine light. And that's what your job, you got a big job, shine a light on people, to wake them up, or to help them up, but to get right, stop being in fear, living life in fear, take charge of your own health, you know, and teach other people how to do it. That's how what these guys and people said, that's what they do. And those three things have become the most important things now in my life. And I'm just so grateful to be at a high times convention and spilling your guts out to people and telling them that this is the truth, what's happening. You know, and be a part of it and help this Mother Teresa on Peyton Ashton Street, you know, continue her work. Because I know that about her. You know, and she's not afraid of anything. So that's why we need her on our side, and you need her, and all of the people you know, you're responsible now for getting them involved in this, because this is truly medicine. You know, I love you guys.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, you guys, for speaking so candidly, because it's not easy to stand up here and say, speak with your heart, and just speak about yourself. And Johnny's right. Touching everybody else that we know enlightens us, and that's how we change the world. So now, you may have some questions, you probably do. I wanted little name tags in front so you can see. And does anyone have a question? Or really? Can you make something up?
How could you replicate your system for your
How could you replicate your? How could we replicate WHAM? You know, in the early '90s when we started WHAM, and I thought that the WHAM organizations would pop up everywhere in every community, because really what you do is you bring people together, and you grow your collective from the people that are involved. So it doesn't really mimic somebody else. It's based on a Marxist principle, from each according to his ability, to each according to his need. The way that works is you have to have excess, you have to have more. If you don't have excess, if everybody takes, it doesn't take long before you don't have enough. And that's kind of what, I'm not saying it's what's happening outside of the doors, but kind of in the movement, it kind of is. There's more greed than there is gift and kindness and awareness. Then there's more consciousness. I don't know if it doesn't get you high anymore. I'm just sort of thinking that maybe it really doesn't. Because really, if it shifted our consciousness, then we would be thinking perhaps in a little bit different way. So you reach into your community and you bring people together. RAM started with one person and then 3 people and then 7 people at the back of my car, with a basket, the whole riding hood thing. And then it got too big, and then we went to the drop-in center, we went to SCAP, which is the Santa Cruz AIDS Project, and they gave us a room. And then we went to the community center. The city council voted to allow us to give away pot at the community center, which didn't feel like such a great idea because there's also kids there. That was great. But there were kids there, and drop a baggie, and then somebody's mom, and it's not a good idea. So then we moved. We tried to find one place we couldn't. Then we went to the needle exchange and the drop-in center, and they let us give it away there. And then for the last, I think, that all happened in the first 4 or 5 years. And then we went to one place in town, the Vikings. They rented us a place, and then we have an office and more of where we do the supply. So it grows. If it grows from you in small ways, there's a sense of security and knowledge and awareness of the people that you work with. And we always have had a board of directors because any good idea is better if it's bigger. Nothing extraordinary happens if you think in ordinary ways. You can't do that. You've got to think outside. And that's what we're in here. That's what you're doing in here. So it's not that difficult. We wrote a nonprofit in 1996, the day after Proposition 215 passed. We got our nonprofit, and then the feds revoked it. And it's been a struggle, but it's no big deal. Just be honest. And that's probably the best thing you can do. Do you have a question?
Yeah. 2 questions.
2 questions.
I don't want to use this, but okay. First, I'm from the East Coast, so I'm wondering if I go on your website, can I find something like you're doing out there, and can I contribute financially on your website for what you're doing? This is fantastic.
Wham.org.
Okay, thank you. The second is, how do we deal with this disinformation or lack of information on the internet? I mean, poor Danny didn't know about what you were doing, and I was watching on Chris Matthews, MSNBC, a parent with a child with epilepsy, had no idea and thought that the FDA, because pot is not legal federally, that there was just nothing the FDA was doing, but GW Pharmaceutical, I just went on the web and found their orphan drug designation, which is wonderful. What do we need to do to get that information out there?
That's a great question. Yeah, it's wham.org, and yes, you can donate. And to get the information out there is, 22 years ago is when we started this publicly, and I would have thought that everybody by now would have collectives in their towns, and that across the United States it would be legal. What we're on the verge of seeing, in my opinion, is the complete takeover of this market, which is a multi-billion-dollar-a-year industry. Pharmaceutical industry first, they're going to reschedule it, and they're going to make it available through pharmaceutical industry. Why? Because it's a multi-billion-dollar-a-year industry. Over the last 25 years, there have been 3 attempts by the FDA and NIDA to control herbs in health food stores. In other words, saying, you cannot take that chamomile. That's dangerous. And we need to regulate all herbs. Well, this is movement to bring cannabis. Let's face it, we weren't the only ones finding out. We aren't the only ones with smart chemists. We aren't the only ones who know how to make oils. The federal government can buy and pay for anything they want to do, and they have been. And pharmaceutical, they're powered by an industry that a corporate industry that there's no end to funding. So do they know about this? Yes. Are they ready to take it over? Yes. Will it be GMO? Absolutely. So what we really have to do is speak to each other about the truth. One tool that we have is the internet, and if everybody talks about the truth of it, you can access it yourself. So the thing about WHAM is that we always want people to grow their own medicine. We know that anybody can grow tomatoes, but do we do it? Mostly we don't. Mostly we give somebody else money to do what we can do. You know, the oxytocin thing. I was at a party, and somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, you want some oxytocin?" And I was like, "Oh." I thought, well, I'll have to do something good, and I'll have a rush of oxytocin, right? Do a good deed and it produces oxytocin. But you don't have to. You can go to work, and you don't even have to do anything good because you can just take some. Seriously. I mean, you could do two things. You could do something good and feel good. But we've stepped away from our own power. We don't recognize the immensity of power that we have as human beings, and in a collective, together, a humanity, a tribe, how much we can do. Not even with oxytocin. All you have to do is something good, and you feel good, and that's what oxytocin is. So what we can do and what we should do is speak about it and talk about it. So before it's given to us at high cost, trust me, it will be so expensive, and it'll be single compounds, or if it's whole plant medicines, which GW is seeing is very effective, that will be the kind of medicine that it will be the medicine that is one size fits all, which we know it doesn't. We know that some people's cancers are go into remission for many reasons. Maybe they stand on one foot, and maybe they eat differently, and maybe they change everything in their lives, or maybe they do a good deed, but they use high CBD. And others will use high THC, and they'll have the same kinds of cancers, if you can call it that, because cancers are variable and they're different from human being to human being and from type to type. But they'll get well, either side. It's a plethora of knowledge, a plethora of possibilities. It's up to us, and to not buy into it. Really, the war is on, more than it's ever been, because this is about the complete takeover of nature. It's subjugated. We are subjugating nature. We have dominion over it. Like what? Like we're not part of it? Yeah, we have dominion over each other, don't we? Do we? Well, we have dominion over us. It is the battle has just really begun, and we really, really, really have to do something about it. The earth I was talking, we were having a conversation the other day, Malcolm and I, just go, the earth is being fracked, everything about it, everything that we're doing to nature is subjugating it because we think we're separate. But we're not. We're part of nature. And that's why everything we do, all the medicines we take, vary from person to person. And they should. And that's why our conversations have to be with each other, and they're powerful. And you just say the same thing over and over. Guess what? It becomes truth. Say it over and over. Everybody believes it. Say it over and over.
Goebbels said that.
Yes, Goebbels said that. And look what he did with it.
Yeah.
There's that schoolboy, that English schoolboy song, Goebbels. No, I won't go on. Anyways, so I don't know if I answered your question. I hope that I did, because what's going to happen in everybody's community very soon is there's going to be something available, but it's not going to necessarily be good medicine. It doesn't mean that I don't think there should be pharmaceuticals. When someone has a stroke and there's triage and you're in the ICU, you want it fast, you want it to be delivered, but it should not take away from the medicines that we have and can provide for one another and for ourselves. We really don't need somebody else to do it for us. We really don't. Right? So, does anybody else have a question? Yeah,
I was just going to ask how you started on this journey.
I had a brain trauma in the desert. I got in a car accident with an airplane, and in the desert on the way out to Burning Man. And when it was, it's before there were telephone poles and electricity, and when we used to go out on the res, and I was at university, and we were allowed to go out, and I got in a car accident and had a massive brain trauma and fell into some 25% of epileptics who do not respond to pharmaceuticals. And that hasn't changed over the decades, no matter what medications have been provided. So in the early 70s, my ex-husband read in a medical journal that marijuana was successfully used in treating laboratory-induced seizures in mice. And so we moved to the mountains, changed everything. In the 70s, the brain did not regenerate new cells. Science is a movable feast. So, and it should be. You should always be asking questions. But the point being is that you have to not believe what you hear, because really we're part of the invention. We're partly creative, and the possibilities lay within each person. And so it was a long journey with zero tolerance. Nixon quashed any further studies after that one on marijuana, and especially because it was so successful. But we had read it and moved to the mountains and grew our own food and did yoga, and so I tried to move into some other part of my brain, had 5 gram malls a day sometimes, was hospitalized often, and just smoked a lot of marijuana. I smoked a lot of pot, blew it, and some of the early medicines that we have that were the land races from Afghanistan and Malawi were really effective medicines in treating, and we've been able to recover some of the uniqueness of these medicines. And so that's how that started. And so I've been a long time pot user, never thought of it as medicine before that, and then started growing it and giving it away. I suggest everybody does that if you want to change the market.
Hi, Valerie. My name is Mike Aldrich. I've known this woman for a long time, though not as long as Michelle, actually. I wanted to say something about Valerie that you may not know. First of all, Wham! In the late 60s, Blair Newman and I came up with an idea of selling Acapulco Gold rolling papers and using the money to legalize marijuana with. And we accomplished that to the extent that we did the first marijuana initiative in California in 1972. And the second part of that vision was that once marijuana was legal, we would use the money from growing marijuana ourselves, not only to provide it for ourselves, but to sell some, and to use that money for further social change. I want to say that was a wonderful hippie vision. There was no one in the world that did it except this woman. She has made Wham! Into a model. A model for anybody who wants to start small and stay small and not be a big marijuana industry. Instead, growing some for a limited number of people. What the Amorphia original vision was little family farms and doing pot tours up 101 and up the coast, just like Napa does now. And every little stand would have their own family brand, and hey, I got this wonderful blah blah blah, and, that kind of stuff. She's the only one that's done it. So what she's done is to bring somebody else's vision into reality. Secondly, the thing that hardly anybody knows is that she made that part of state law. The only reason that we're able to grow our own and to grow collectively and cooperatively under SB 420 state law is because she got that written in there against great opposition from the narcs and even from the politicians. So, thank you.
Because I'm sure you have something to talk to us about. Can we step sideways? I'm so lucky. Here with my mentors.
She's my mentor. She's got it backwards there. I want to tell you about Valerie, what I know about the bravery of this woman. She, of course, showed me these things in that beautiful area that she lives in, and we did a lot of nice things together around there. But we ended up going to Washington, D.C. to speak to the Justice Department, where this lady turned herself in. She did. told him, as long as I have the ability to grow marijuana or have marijuana, I will share it with whoever needs it. I love you, Valerie. I'm Oli Musica, and I'm one of 2 people who are currently receiving medical marijuana from the federal government. 2 of us. There's 4 in the program left, but the other 2 do not have a doctor that wants to deal with the DEA's baloney before you can ever get anything through them. So these 4 kids are well, they're not kids anymore. We all started as kids, but this has been going on for decades for us. And these kids are in the Midwest with no medicine and no law to protect them, and it is really a tragedy that we can't get the medical profession to go up there and challenge the DEA and help these people. They are in the program, but they can't get their medicine unless they have a doctor that the DEA and FDA and NIDA approve of. By the way, before anybody can enter this program, you have to prove to FDA, DEA, and NIDA in extensive medical records with reliable doctors that marijuana is the most efficient, the most reliable, and the safest part of our treatment. In other words, the government is very much aware of what kind of medicine we actually have, because even with those requirements, and as much as it was against the law, all of us who really had a chance at all to get into that program, we won our way. Some of us through court, like mine. Oh, by the way, we established a medical defense for the state of Florida back in August 15, 1988. And now they're going to get it on the ballot, and they're going to have laws to help them. My state of Oregon now is going to make it legal for all of us to have it as it should be. To arrest an adult for choosing a wiser bud is the epitome of hypocrisy. To arrest a patient for choosing the Creator's work, that's blasphemy, blasphemy, blasphemy.
I want to see if my esteemed panel has anything to add. Sometimes you sit up here and you're thinking like, we're inspired, no doubt.
Just one more thing.
Please.
Imagine if you had the power to turn somebody's wretched, horrible life from, gee, I don't know if I can go on another minute, or the sleeping pills too. Gee, I'm having a great time. I've got a lot of optimism. Well, you do have that power. Imagine if you had the power to keep somebody from going blind. You do have that power. Please, support medical marijuana. Thank you.
I just want to finish by saying that WHAM does run on donations. So the only way that we are able to offer this medicine to people who have no money or very little money, and believe me, when you get sick, that's the first thing that's going to shoot out the window. That and your friends. But you'll have friends in WHAM. Please, please donate. That's how we do everything we do.
WHAM.org.
WHAM.org.
Yeah, with 2 M's. WAMM.
A couple of months ago, I lost my doctor because I went in there and she had stalled on my my medical marijuana recommendation. And finally I called and I tracked her down and she turned it in. And she spent 15 minutes telling me how pot's bad for my liver. And then in the same breath, she says, well, I'm going to give you a prescription for Paxil and a muscle relaxer and a nerve numbness thing and a pain reliever and soma for this. And I just walked out and never went back. And I'm never, ever going to go to a doctor that will not give me that recommendation. I swear.
Yeah, Palo Alto Health, PAMP, they don't issue
That's because they're run by insurance companies. Their insurance companies forbid them to write it, but some doctors do.
Yeah, so it's really important. That's a really important part of it all. But also too is that you can reduce the amount of pharmaceutical drugs that you take if you partake in the oils, because it can remedy a lot of problems that you have that with inflammation or The other minor things as well, it reduces all the pain medication that you might be prescribed now. So it's really important, I think. And this gal is not afraid of anything, so that's why the attitude you all have to have too, for yourself. So.
Thank you. Thank you all for taking the time to be here. There's no very many questions. I think we're kind of running over time, but I don't know what that means. But does anyone else? Thank you. Have fun and enjoy your life. Change the world.